Hi, today I'd like to talk to you about one word, one very deciding word, and one word used in very different ways, depending on which side of the political spectrum you are. And that word is socialism. Socialism! Socialism. What does it mean? Doesn't really matter right now, because what it means is not the way it's being used. We'll get to the meaning later, but let's start with how conservatives, how Trumpists, how MAGA, how Republicans use the word socialist and socialism. The general public within the Republican Party, when they hear the word, for them it means authoritarianism, dictatorship, extreme income and wealth inequality, lack of freedoms, breadlines, poverty, things like that. Things that other people might actually attribute to capitalism. Anyhow, this is of course a valid fear. None of these things are things that we as a general public want. So it's understandable that if people attribute these words or these meanings with this word, then of course they are against that. Of course, we all are. Let's say most of us are. There are people on the left and on the right that are, of course, pro-authoritarianism, as long as it's their view that wins in the end. Wake-up call. 99% of the chances is that whatever authoritarian structure there is, it will not 100% match your view. You will always be one of those oppressed in any authoritarian regime. Even if it's your religious view, your religious sect, you might still have some disagreements and you will still be subjugated. Or you might want to have a free thought into a different direction and you'll be still subjugated to this authoritarianism. So this is always something bad. We should maximize freedom as much as possible to the degree or up to the limit where it starts harming people. Meaning free speech, for example, should be limited where it starts very targetedly calling for violence or like calling fire in a crowded stadium, which will cause massive panic and can cause stampedes and many people to die. There have to be some limits and some regulations in order to protect life. Yeah. After all, we are pro-life here now on the Republican Party, aren't we? Right? So if we want to protect life, we have to some degree, regulate freedom. Regulate does mean reduce, does mean to limit it at some point. But regardless of that, let's get back to the word socialism. Now, if you want to have a system that's more equal and not so much wealth inequality and not so much dictatorship and authoritarian structures and suppressing of different opinions and whatnot, you want a system where the majority of the people get to say what happens, what regulations, what laws get put into place. And that system, of course, works best under a functioning democracy. That's maybe why, to some degree, Western countries might have been doing better than authoritarian countries. But at the same time, it also shows that the US democracy is in decline over many years. Trump is a part of that, but it's been going on at least since the Reagan years, probably made worse under Bill Clinton, continued under Bush, continued under Obama, continued under Trump. Yes, his rhetoric was good in many ways in 2016. Anti-TPP, anti free trade agreements, anti-NAFTA, things that actually Bernie was supporting, like being against those things. Bernie was saying the same things, yet Trump did nothing. He ended NAFTA and reinstated it under a different name. Good job. Same thing, different name. But that's something Republicans are really good at, rebranding the same thing under a different name. Really good at that. Specific talent for that. Kudos. And when you're talking about what Democrats, or not even Democrats, let's not even throw all the Democrats under the hat, because a good chunk, maybe 80% of Democrats are not socialists. Some are maybe socialist, some even maybe Marxist, but it's probably not the majority of the people. The majority of Democrats are probably somewhere in the spectrum of social Democrats, meaning they want to expand social programs, they want to expand help for needy people, needy communities. They don't want to overthrow the system as it is. If you as a Republican are calling Biden a socialist, you are so far off the mark. Biden is a corporatist. Biden is pro-capitalism. Socialism stands in direct opposition to capitalism. Communism stands in direct opposition to capitalism and big corporations. And many of you have gotten a wake-up call and said, hey, we can't just let all these big companies, big corporations, big tech go unregulated the way they have been. Yeah, you are starting to wake up to that. So these are, like, to regulate these companies and to put limits on their power, these are lefty ideas. And for that portion of Democrats who are or are pro-socialist, and Bernie might actually be a socialist, AOC might actually be a socialist, but neither of these two candidates have actually advocated for real socialist agendas or real socialist proposals, laws, legislature. There's maybe a touch of what was in Bernie's campaign to democratize the workplace that you could say is pushing into the direction of socialism, and I'll get to the meaning, because that exactly goes to that. Get out my mobile to get the meaning correct, because when it comes to dictionary definitions, you should get them spot on. Socialism, a political and economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. So that's exactly what you're actually for. You want to have a regulation and the people having as much influence on the wealth in the country as possible. Influence meaning they partake in the wealth, that you don't have the top half being completely free to gain more and more wealth, and the bottom half being kept under a lid and saying you cannot, you will be kept down at whatever means possible. A lot of the way policing is done in the US is targeted deliberately to keep poor communities down. That goes for black and for white people. But it does hit a majority of black people, unfortunately. But the system is there as a whole to keep poor people down. The American dream is a dream. It's not reality anymore. It's like you can get lucky and somehow you break through this ceiling, but it's very, very hard. The way your education system is structured as well makes this hard. If you're poor, you have to take a loan for your university for studying, and then you're bankrupted or you're in debt for the rest of your life. You have to pay. So the whole system is made in such a way to keep you poor, whatever comes, unless you're already at the top. And the classical example of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, who for for the past year, where everyone has been suffering so tremendously. These guys have made billions. Jeff Bezos made over 90 billion in the last year. 90 billion, whereas everyone else was losing money and struggling. These were doing people like this have been doing phenomenally well. And this is under capitalism. Right? So you realize what you've been attributing to socialism is actually happening right now in the US. Whatever you want to call it, this system that you have right now in the US, it's not working. You want to bring change. Both sides want to bring change. And we need to work together to keep pressure, to hold Biden accountable, to push him towards doing things that will benefit the general public. So when lefties sometimes use the word socialism, they are actually saying more like social things that are not directly socialism, but are moving into that direction to being more pro-worker, more pro the average working person, or even if you lost your job or whatever, you're still one of the people and not part of the 1%. Yeah, and the majority of the people should have the say in a government, in a democracy, and this is what we're pushing for. And if a system like this is functioning, normal people, regular people will be doing better. Because why should they implement policies that harm them? They'll implement policies that will benefit them, like increasing the minimum wage, hugely popular throughout the US, except then Fox News and even CNN and MSNBC will be, they used to be pro minimum wage, but now that Biden is in power, no, we don't want to do minimum wage. But you, the people, want a higher minimum wage, and we should be pushing for that. We can find agreement amongst Democrats and Republicans on that as voters, as normal people, not within the establishment, not within the GOP, not within the DNC as a whole, with very few exceptions, especially amongst the Democratic Party. As I mentioned, the big people pushing for changes like increasing the minimum wage: Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar. I could go through the whole squad. I've done that before, but I don't always want to go on a whole tangent. When we make the workplace more democratic, when we strengthen unions, when we improve the democracy or make a system where big corporations can no longer donate to political parties and the campaigns of politicians, then we can force politicians to start enacting what we the people want. And this is a system we should all strive and work towards. One of the big organizations that pushes for getting money out of politics is wolf-pac.com. Go check it out. PAC written with a P-A-C, not C-K. So it's different than a wolf pack. It's written like the pack as in a political pack. Anyway, no shout out to other streamers today. I just wanted to finish this video to talk about socialism and hopefully make some of your people understand it better. And maybe we can get into a discussion about this word and what kind of policies we're actually fighting for. And if you manage to lessen your fear of Democrats and far left people through this video, then I have succeeded. Thank you very much. Hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.